Hello everybody, welcome to a new video, and today we are talking about Lily Orchard. Now, I haven't spoken to her in a very long time, so I don't have any prefix to this. I just found this video and thought, you don't know the character, so I'm going to talk about it.
You've won nothing.
In my last video on the Owl House, I made the remark that I would only view all the content with Luz and Amity as a positive if they got together a significant amount of time before the series finale and stayed together. This struck a nerve with some people, and there was a consistent refrain from the audience of let things develop naturally and slowly.
Well, I mean, I don't fault them. You shouldn't try and put your opinions on writing onto other writers when other writers don't agree with you. There's evidence other writers just don't agree with you on a lot of things. This entire live stream, was it a live stream? This entire 3-hour long video of some kind, where people are just reacting to your horrible writing tips. I don't think you should be giving tips to professional writers at all, when the only thing you've known how to write is horrible fanfiction.
You want to know the problem with that? You can only choose one of those. One of my biggest positives about the Owl House is that it has really good pacing. Everything moves at a good speed and nothing feels dragged out.
Mark this as the only time you ever hear me say I agree with you, Lily. The Owl House had really good pacing, and everything was just perfect with the pacing and everything, about the story. Perfect. I don't have anything else to say, it's just we agree for once, and I just want to make light of that because we don't agree often, but when we do, it's usually something good. I
expressed hope that this would also apply to the resident romantic subplot of Luz and Amity. As much as I find Amity to be underwhelming, I don't object to these two being a thing. In fact, they're kinda cute. But this statement was met with pushback from people who said they didn't want the story to be rushed, that everything should develop slowly, that this should be a slow burn throughout the series. And whenever I hear that, I get the same feeling one would get when you ask someone what they want for dinner, and they say, "Oh, I'll just have plain bread, thank you."
Now, I'm from the South, so when somebody says they just want plain bread for dinner, there's probably something really wrong with them. Like, insanely wrong with them if they just want bread for dinner. Or they're crazy, one or the other.
Now, I clown on you guys a lot because it's fun and I have this compulsive need to sabotage my career at every opportunity out of a trauma-induced fear of happiness and success.
Two things. One, YouTube's not your therapist, you don't need to put your problems out on it. Two, I think it's more because you're a jackass. I'm also a jackass. Except I don't actively harm my ability to gain viewers because I'm a jackass. People laugh at me because I make fun of jackasses like yourself.
But you guys really don't know what you're missing sometimes. You really just want Amity to be gay panicking the entire show? You wouldn't want to see them be cute together?
Now, this is where the video and me started to disagree. No, I'm all for slow buns and all throughout the story relationships. But you are about to talk about a character that has a trope, and it's this character that, I forget the trope name, I saw it not too long ago, but she's not a bitch to be a bitch. She's a bitch because she's pressured by her parents. Her parents control pretty much every aspect of her life. So for you to try and put your own real world logic to it is irrelevant to a large degree, since A, it's a cartoon for children, B, these children, especially nowadays, will have their parents doing this shit, C, I have to say this again, it's a cartoon, neither you nor I should be taking it this seriously. The thing is, I don't have anything better to do on I think Wednesday night, and D, you just don't know a lot about writing. I'm just gonna keep bringing it up, you just don't know a lot about writing.
Or snuggle? And you know Luz would, you know she's a snuggler.
Fucking weird. Just weird.
Okay, let's get down to it. Here's where the problems begin. How many of you have actually been in a relationship before?
Me.
For real, how many of you have been in a relationship and stayed in that relationship?
Me again.
Because I'd hazard a guess that it's not a lot of you. The idea that a relationship has tons of pining from a distance and all that prelude is the real meat of the story is one that immediately tells me that a person's experience with relationships in real life has only been pining and watching from a distance.
You know what? I'll agree there. I'll agree to that, kinda. I can see the argument you're making. It's kind of a straw man, but still, I see the argument you're making. I want to see how you're gonna finish this.
People more experienced with relationships, or just managing to have at least one really good one in their lives, tend to have a different view of them entirely. Oftentimes the good relationships are the ones you didn't see coming, the ones that didn't have you pining over someone for months at a time.
Alright, I'm still on board. I can get behind that as well. I like relationships that typically don't pine for a long amount of time. But again, I like both. It just depends how it's done, because there is a right way and a wrong way.
Take my fiance, Michaela Turkelson. We've been together for a year and a half, and it's been an absolutely blissful experience, quarantine keeping us apart notwithstanding. It's been so good, in fact, that it's really hammered home how much of a hotbed of emotional abuse my last long-term relationship was. Do you know how much time passed between me realizing I had feelings for her and asking her out? 9 days.
Look at my barren land of fuck. I have not been able to grow the fuck the entire time you've been speaking about your relationship. Please move on to something I give two shits about. Nobody cares about your relationship. They care about Luz and Amity. I mean, of course, there's probably some people that care about your relationship, but I'm not part of that group. Now, am I? I'm here to argue that you don't know what you're talking about. And right now, it just sounds like you're putting your life experience onto a character that has massive amounts of trauma put onto them by overbearing parents that have basically emotionally abused them their entire fucking life. You don't understand. You've pretty much outgrown, well, not outgrown, you don't really outgrown your parents' trauma, the trauma your parents put onto you, but you've come to a point in your life where you can look back and if your parents were bad, say, they were bad, but I'm better. Amity's not at that point yet. She still has to deal with them. You cannot put your relationship onto a character that has all that trauma built up inside of them. And don't, and your friends can say, Amity has no trauma. She can't, she's not able to have trauma. Why don't you do me a favor? Watch The Owl House. And watch the episode that, there's a picture from later. Or before, I forget where in this video, I'm listening to it, not watching it mostly right now. Where they go inside Willow's mind. Watch that episode, and you get an idea of what Amity's parents are like. And just watch the show before you fucking comment on it. Watch it and understand the characters before you comment on it. Let's say it like that. Watch it and understand the characters before you say shit.
9 days between the realization and asking her out, and that 9 days would have been shorter if I hadn't had to stop to think about whether these feelings were genuine or if I just wanted to return to a sense of normalcy after several months of severely traumatic incidents had upended my life.
I assume you're over the age of 20 because I believe you're older than me and I'm over the age of 20. That means you should be able to tell your feelings apart from actual romantic feelings versus wanting a sense of normalcy, as you said. I can, so you should be able to.
And that's some adults in their mid-20s. Teenagers work even faster than that, and it's not just because of the old boomer idea that teenage relationships don't last. Teenagers perceive time more slowly. A day feels longer to a teenager than it does to an adult. 3 months is a significant time for a 14-year-old, but for a 26-year-old, it's practically a blip on the radar. Teenagers live higher density lives. Their days are packed with more things to do on average than an adult often is. So even putting awkwardness aside, it won't take much time for something to happen.
See, the issue is we're not just putting awkwardness aside. It's more than just awkwardness. You fail to realize this. I am willing to bet that Amity being rejected is a large portion of why she hasn't, set her feelings yet. Now I'm willing to bet the other reason is her parent. We won't know until the next season, of course, but I am willing to bet that there's more than just gay panic than fucking you think. There's a lot more. This is a show that we've already seen a decent amount of depth to the characters from in one season. It's not gonna get lazier, it's just gonna get more complex as time goes on. But if you pay attention to TV shows nowadays, you'd understand that. Unless it's Teen Titans Go, in which case you probably enjoy it because it's pretty linear. And you seem to like linear stuff.
The only people who pine for years and never do anything about it are
Jerks online who want to debate!
Now, this is where my biggest issue came into play. You seem to lack the understanding of anxiety disorders and other issues like that. It is completely feasible that somebody would pine for years because they are afraid. No amount of you badgering somebody when they're afraid will get them to not be afraid. I've seen this many a times, and it's just pathetic you don't see this at all. You haven't seen this once in your mid-20 years of life, as you said. Didn't give numbers, so I said mid-20. This is teenage shit as well. Teenagers will do this. So like, an adult is more likely to just say fuck it than a teenager is, because while their lives are more dense, their days are more dense, their perception of social cues and hierarchies are more realized. And that's also something you should realize, especially Amity. We know she's very focused on the hierarchy, or at least she was, until she met Luz. We always see the bedrock of stuff being in place for her to overcome these character traits and be the character you want her to be. But instead, you'd rather her just throw away any character development she could have in this time, and just say fuck it. That's not how character writing works. And if you think that's how it works, you're a worse writer than I thought.
I've always found that stories about couples staying together were more interesting than stories about couples getting together.
Obviously, if it's just that. Whenever it comes to couples getting together, the story ends when they get together. That's the story. Staying together, you get to follow them throughout the struggles of a relationship. That's why it's more entertaining. However, that's not what the Owl House is. If you think that's what it is, then you're missing the point.
But it has always seemed like I was in the minority on that front. I've had people argue with me that the build-up, the lead-up to a relationship that ends with them getting together is the really good part. And while that can sometimes be good if you're working with a character for whom confessing their feelings and talking about their feelings is difficult,
But you did completely miss the point of Amity. You did. You did. Fuck. You fucking stupid. Fuck.
it's not the only one. Once again, we come down to fandom culture believing there's only one way to write any story and rigidly sticking to it.
I refuse to believe that a person can unironically do the thing they're saying and then say it's a bad thing. Instead of saying it's a bad thing about slow buns, when nobody's telling you that it only has to be a slow bun. You've yet to show anybody who actually say that. You just said, well, people argue. Yeah, well, I can say people argue that pedophilia is a good thing. That doesn't mean they do. Sadly, they do, but you know, still, the point stands. Just because you say something, that doesn't mean that happens.
This slow burn, enemies to lovers, sob story, redemption, romance is the only thing a lot of these people care about. I've attributed the rise in ubiquity of this trope to the way in which younger creators have grown up in the world of fanfiction, but the way in which social media has made viewers' voices more easily heard has affected this as well. It's no wonder so many shows are so bland and samey. Audiences have actively demanded that they become bland and samey. I've watched people lament that Luz's relationships to other characters, the main central element of the Owl House, is getting in the way of the world building. Those jackasses at the round table are constantly trying to twist, warp, and mutate the Owl House into basically being a convoluted 47D chess anime or some shit. If creators aren't careful, their own fans will tear their works apart and burn it to pieces.
Shows like the Owl House, Gravity Falls, and any show like this made by Disney that you can think of gets their fan base by letting their fan base do this ton things into 47D chess anime is what you said. The point of it is to get people talking about it. If they talk about something, it will spread to more and more people. From a marketing standpoint, it makes sense. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. And from a creative standpoint, it makes sense. Because if you don't know what you should do for something, you always look at a fan theory like Adventure Time did. You're like, we like that. We like that theory. That's canon. There's multiple shows that have done this good, and there's multiple shows that have done this bad. This is not going to be a bad show. This is a show that does it good. I can already tell based on the first season.
And a lot of people are content to eat the same thing over and over and over again. Slow burn enemies to lovers is a trope unto itself that some people just cannot ever let go of, often to disgusting degrees. I've talked about how problematic the enemies to lovers trope.
I'm glad you mentioned She-Ra because I know a little bit about She-Ra. Now, She-Ra doesn't have a slow bun because slow bun. She-Ra has a slow bun because Catra felt betrayed whenever Adora switched sides. So, it's not like there wasn't a reason for the slow bun like you're putting forth. There was. Again, you don't understand how character writing works, which does not surprise me in the slightest.
Can often be, and with Shadowlands on the horizon and Blizzard's contempt for women having been put on full display, I'll no doubt have to talk about it again at some point. But I want to talk more about the concept of a slow burn because it doesn't mean what you think it means. Slow burn is a relationship that develops over the course of the story. It's a major element throughout the entire arc and is always growing and being developed. That's the slow part. But the part people get stuck on is the burn. Think of it like a 100-hour candle. It burns slowly and takes a while to reach its end while giving off heat, light, and energy. However, in order to do any of that, the candle has to actually be lit. A relationship starting is not the candle reaching the bottom of its wick and burning out. A relationship starting is when the candle is lit. Relationships are packed to the brim with content to develop the relationship from the moment it starts, working through each other's baggage, problem solving, conflict resolution, hurt, comfort.
Wait. So you're going through all the trouble to explain what a slow burn relationship is, but this entire time I've been under the assumption that you don't know. Okay, so now that we can get that off the play of you not knowing what it is, why do you believe that She-Ra and the Owl House have slow burn relationships? These are obviously relationships that are being held back by other means. It's not something simple like that. You're just complaining for complaining's sake. Which I'm all for, except you should try to have your complaints make some matter of sense instead of just starting a video and complaining about nothing for about 10-11 minutes. I forget how long this video was originally.
A relationship is work. It will always be work. It's rewarding work, but it is still work. There's an episode of Friends where Monica and Chandler have a fight while they're on a weekend getaway together. By the end of it, Chandler is under the impression that this means that the relationship is over because they had a fight, and Monica tells him that isn't actually how relationships work.
So, I guess this is over.
What?
Well, you know, you and me. I mean, it had to end sometime.
Why exactly?
Because of the weekend, we had a fight.
Chandler, that's crazy. If you give up every time you have a fight with someone, you'd never be with anyone longer than... Oh.
That kind of stuff is the element of a slow burn. They get together and their story isn't over. Getting together is just a new adventure. Writing an entire story about people getting together and then ending after they get together is like eating the crust off a sandwich and not touching the actually good part.
Well, we agree again. In most cases, the burn before the relationship should take a short amount of time. But I'd also not want to have these characters' identities rushed to make that happen. Amity is not a character that you can just rush to a relationship like that, especially a gay one, because her parents probably wouldn't accept it. And this is going into something that you probably didn't know about making this video. Or if you did, you opted out of showing it because it went against what you said. But there's an AMA for Season 2 of The Owl House not too long ago. Well, about The Owl House in general, but there's an AMA for it. And one of the things mentioned in that AMA was that the new season will have parental conflict. Meaning A, loses mother, comes out of World War. B, they immediately loses father somehow. I don't know how. Or the more likely candidate, C, is Amity's parents. Which, their relationship would be a great point of conflict since she's supposed to be the best and she's hanging out with a human. I don't know how you can write all this off. It's not as simple as, this is how it works. Your experience with characters isn't universal. Nobody's experience with characters is universal. This is why you're not good at writing, because you can't take that into consideration. Or unless you're not good at writing tips. You may be good at writing. I never actually read anything you wrote, because I typically have standards.
You're missing out on so much when you do that. You know what? I'm gonna give you homework. I want you to find a story about a relationship that starts early and continues on throughout the story. I want you to read whatever that story is and then come back and tell me whether it was more satisfying or less satisfying than a dragged out pining fest followed by an abrupt ending. Could be a fanfic, a book, a TV show, anything you like, as long as it meets that criteria. Consume it, come back, and tell me about it. I've had people tell me that they decided to take my advice and get characters together quickly, and that it was more satisfying than pining. And I want to see whether or not people just need a kick in the ass to appreciate cute, healthy couples, or if there really is just no accounting for taste. Who knows? You might discover something about yourself. You might prove me wrong. Wouldn't that be an accomplishment?
Lily, don't act like it's that hard to prove you wrong. Do you forget that there's an entire 3-hour long live stream of people talking about your tips? Not just people, professional writers talking about your writing tips and saying what's right or wrong about them. You can't say it's hard to prove you wrong when people have. Hell, I could prove you wrong, and I'm not a writer at all. I just know how writing works. Anyway, moral of the story is, Lily doesn't know how relationships work in most media, and you shouldn't take anything she says for anything except her opinion, as most things should be took on the internet, unless there's factual evidence to back it up. If you like, slow burn relationships where the story ends as they get together, like it. You prefer the other way, like it. It doesn't matter. Also, to finish your thing, I've seen it both ways, Lily, and I have no preference. I do not care as long as the story's good and I enjoy it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.